All right, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I already see some folks in the chat with a debate about the U.S. East versus West Coast. I'll stay out of that one. But do want to welcome you all to this extended edition of Confluence for Project Managers. If you could let me know real quick in the chat that you can hear me. Constantly paranoid. I can see my audio levels, but want to make sure you can all hear what I'll be sharing. We've got folks, it looks like, from kind of all over the place, all over the U.S. We've got Sweden, India, seeing some familiar names. So thank you all for coming back for more. Again, this session will be extra long. When I started doing these live trainings, they started at 45 minutes, and I quickly found that that was not nearly enough time, so I made them 60 minutes. And then I realized some of these topics, usually Confluence for blank, requires even more time because there's so much to explore around these tools and so much interaction between folks. Improve IT, thank you for saying my sound is perfect. I guess I can't change anything at all ever now. So I'm stuck being perfect. I appreciate that. We are going to... get rid of that little guy. We are going to jump into... Bandit Fist is already reading my mind and trying to say this word improperly. We are going to jump into learning around how to use this system. I will start out with some slides, but I'm going to mix in hands-on. So if you've been in sessions with me before, typically I'll do about 20 minutes of slides to explain concepts and ideas, and then jump into the rest in hands-on. Here, we're going to kind of go back and forth. We're going to have a scenario that we have to execute or work on or do in Confluence. So we'll talk about it a bit, and then we'll get hands-on, and then we'll talk about the next step and get hands-on. In about 45 minutes, at 6:45 Pacific, we're going to have a break of about 5 minutes. This is another first for me. It's to give us all time to go use the restroom, to go get some more coffee, and also a time for me to tinker with some other things like inserting ads to help support the channel. So keep in mind, in about 45 minutes, we'll get a break. This will also be recorded. So if you miss any of this, if you have coworkers who might benefit from it, please check out the recording. And I've got some exciting announcements maybe towards the end of this that I'll share, debating how much I want to share with you all at this point. All right. Now, let's see. How many folks do we have? We are going to get started, team. Some of you have already found that chat. I'll talk about interaction, but please use the chat. I'm also going to be playing with other ways to use the chat, to do polls, to ask you questions, and collect questions so I can answer them all at once. So I'm trying some things to make the stream a little bit more useful and better for folks. But here we are. We're going to jump into our first set of slides talking about Confluence for project managers. A quick way of introduction. My name is Rob. I've been in IT project management my entire career. I started out as the IT help desk student worker at university and kind of never looked back. Quickly made the transition off of help desk into project work and ended up, the fun fact at the bottom, driving a hard disk across state lines. It was faster to jump in a car with a laptop than it was to try and send something over the internet. So I drove from Seattle to Portland overnight to plug a laptop into a server just to make it work. Brendan, welcome, my friend. Glad you could make it. It looks like there's a debate going on about weather and Packers fans, so I'll let that just keep simmering. I've used Atlassian products for the past over a decade or so. I was forced into using them. And this is probably true for many people. You show up at a new job and you're just told you will use Confluence now. That's what we have. And that's what happened to me. I showed up at my first job in the Bay Area, California, and I asked someone, what's our knowledge base? And they pointed at Confluence and said, there you go. And that was my training. And that is why I do these learnings, to help other folks like all of you avoid the frustration and challenges of figuring out how to use a tool. It's a great way to learn, I will say, and I'll always encourage you to be hands-on. Get out there and use the system. And even right now, if you have access to Confluence, please have it open in another window or another tab so you can kind of follow along. It's going to be a great way to help your skills grow by, experiencing it yourself. I also hold multiple Atlassian certifications, and Mondays and Fridays I have other live learnings around those certifications. You don't have to want to earn the certification to benefit from those, but if it's something you're interested in, please consider joining us. I mentioned interaction. YouTube is great because you can see and hear me. I cannot see and hear you, and that is a little bit frustrating because it's hard to interact. So please use the chat. You will also see me doing a couple of new things with the chat. For example, I might insert a poll that is something like this. Oops, helps if I type properly. So you might see a poll pop up in the chat where you can just answer, yes, no, or whatever the questions are. So this will be a new way to interact. This is a built-in feature from YouTube that I'm tinkering with. Mainly it's right in the chat for you all. Also, I don't have to pay for anything, and it's just me over here, so the cheap free tools are great for me. So I'll be experimenting with this and one other feature that allows me to collect questions so I can have a dedicated time for Q&A. But I expect you all let me know if this is annoying, if this helps, or if this hurts. So please use these new features as you see them pop up. Just another way to help us engage with each other. Of course, if you like this, please like it at any time during the stream. I'll remind you as we go. But likes help other people find it, and also let me know that you find it beneficial. I'm picking on project management again because I'm familiar with it, but also because historically people have liked it. It seems like it's useful for folks. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button as well. This will let you know about upcoming things that I've got going on. And you can also share this with others. So if you have other people around, please share it. Amy, I love that comment. I'm going to copy that off, and I'll have some dedicated time to dig into specific questions or concerns at the end of kind of each little mini section I've got. But I appreciate you sharing that, what you want to get out of this. All right, now I got to close this poll. All right, so our next question, and I'll just have this kind of up for a bit. So I've just added a question, and this will let you type in a question that I'll get a list of that I can then pick out, specific things. If you have a specific thing you want to learn about Confluence or project management or how both work together, please drop it in there. I'll keep this list. I'll turn it off in a few moments, and I'll ask you again as we go. But if there's something specific you're coming into this that you really want to learn or that you're super interested in, please drop it in there. And Ghost, feel free to, again, share this and also invite people to come join in. Here's our agenda. And again, we'll have a first half and second half. In the first half, we're going to cover some Confluence basics to make sure we all understand them. And then we're going to dig into some concepts around preparing Confluence and getting ready for the project. And this will all tie back to how do we successfully support a project. Now, in this instance, I'm not going to focus too much on just Agile or just Waterfall or Kanban or Scrumban or any of those. It's just kind of generically covering all of them. I can dig into specific use cases, though, if that's something folks want. But the goal here is to understand how does this platform support project management in general. And it can be expressed in different ways. I will apply my experience, but please use the chat, the Q&A, etc., to let me know specific things, or if you want me to dig into Waterfall more or something else, I'm happy to do that. We'll go from concepts, and again, hands-on, we'll go back and forth. Brendan, I think you just, you read my mind there, my friend. So in this example, we'll have a scenario that I'll talk about in the next slide or two about what we have to do. But again, it's a generic project. I'll just talk about how can this tool support the phases of project management or the things we need to do, like planning, like collecting knowledge, like executing work. The second half will focus more on specific features in Confluence. So the first bit will be setting up the system. The second bit will be going in and using it. Now, we also have this hands-on section, so I'll do my best to stick to this agenda. I have found in these trainings, I tend to go back and forth and just kind of follow what the audience wants. So please let me know what you're interested in. So here's our scenario. We are a project manager on project JQL. You hear me pronounce this JQuil. I'm really trying to make that a thing in the same way you pronounce SQL SQL. So if you hear me say JQuil, it refers to Jira query language, or our project in this case. We've been given access to Confluence, and it hasn't been set up though. So we were just new project managers. We've been told you can use Confluence, and we need to do some things. We need a space to host information. We have to build a structure or plan a structure around it, including restricted content that's extra sensitive. We'll have to create templates to support ourselves and our team. And then we're going to have to brainstorm out our project. What do we want the project to be about? We'll also then need to add some content in and design our project plan. So again, this is just a structure of framework to use. We may not follow this exactly, but this will give us a good story that we can follow through Confluence to see how it supports these different activities that I have had to do on almost every single project. I'm going to pop back to our questions real quick and just see what we have. Oop. And I think... All right. So this is the scenario we're going to be following as we go. But first, just way of question, and I really need to be better about using my tools here. It's just how comfortable are you with Confluence? And I'll drop this in as a poll. And I can't fit the 5 in. Oh no. Well, we'll have a 4-point scale because I can't make a 5 fit in the Q&A. This is fun for me because I can see the numbers come up and down. One thing I don't like about these polls, though, is I can't see who responds, I don't think. So please let me know what y'all think of this. If you find this poll more useful than just typing text into the chat, or if you would prefer just the chat, feedback there would be appreciated. While folks are answering, Tushar has a great point. We are going to see some terminology changes coming on the Jira side of the house. So we'll talk about connecting to Jira in this course. But the Jira projects will be called Jira Spaces. That's new. And we do have a Discord. This is intended for live chat. I'll talk more about this as we go, but we've got a group of about 150 folks who are sharing Confluence knowledge, Jira knowledge, Atlassian knowledge in real time. All right, so about a third of us are pretty confident with Confluence, about a half, and the other half not so much, which is totally okay. And that's why I'm glad you all are here. Now, Confluence at its core is just a collaboration platform, and there's a weird black line around me. Let me get rid of that. There we go. I first learned of it as a... Oh, I'm sorry. 1 is super low, 5 is super high, or 4 is super high. Thank you for calling that out, Josephine. I will add that to the next one, and I really appreciate you calling me out on that one. Confluence, when I first learned about it, was a knowledge base, and Atlassian has started calling it a collaboration platform, and this to me makes sense. It's not just a static place that I put documentation for later. It's somewhere that when I work on projects, my team is constantly going in and building knowledge and sharing things. So don't think of it just as like a room in the back where you stuff information. It's somewhere where I actively go all the time. Now within Confluence, if we think of Confluence as a library, we have spaces, which are ways to organize our content. Typically, this could be by like a department, by a team, or a project. But a space is just a place to put information. So in our scenario today, we're going to have a space for our project. You don't have to have a space for a project, though. You could build out a content in what's called the content hierarchy. So every space has a hierarchy that will let you build out a structure. So we will consider in our scenario, do we need a space, one entire area of Confluence for Project JQuil, or do we just need a part of another space? I'll talk more about that as we go, but you could also have a space by team, which is a scenario to make it part of the content tree. You'll hear me say content tree and content hierarchy kind of interchangeably. The content hierarchy is important because it contains pretty much everything in your space, and making sure it is organized is really important. As a project manager, if I have someone new join the team, or if I have a stakeholder come take a look, I want them to be able to easily find everything. I don't want to have them have to come to me to ask questions. Hey, Rob, where are the updates? Hey, Rob, where is this API documentation? Hey, Rob, where is the stakeholder registry? It should just be apparent based on this structure. And this is where, as project managers, we may not have someone help us manage that. So we might be responsible for keeping this clean and organized, but we also want to tell our team that they need to keep it clean and organized. Now we will dig more into content types, but just as a quick overview, there's about 6 of them. We get live docs and pages, which look very similar. Live docs are new, and they are intended to be instantly published, so we could all jump in and make sprint notes all at once. But we also have pages, which are kind of the stereotypical content, and we'll work a lot with pages in this course. However, we also have whiteboards for visual collaboration, databases for structure, and we'll talk about and use both of these in this session. But also we get blogs, which are kind of the odd person out in this case. I'd be curious in the chat if anyone has found good use cases for blogs. Hey, Emily H. And Ghost, I'm curious what you find good about live docs. Now at the bottom we have smart links. This one is also kind of forgotten. I'll explain the use cases of these, but it lets you tie in other resources. You can link in a Confluence page, but it's more useful to pull in external resources, other things. Whew. Okay, this one I'm just going to put in the chat, but I'm curious how you structure or how you store your project information or documentation. And I'm asking this because we all do it differently, and I think it's important for us to share different ways we figured out to make it work. Justin's using blogs for upcoming changes and updates that'll be pushed, and I'm chopping off the top of Justin's icon there. I'm sorry, my friend. Monthly activities, updates on new features for blogs. I love it. New features. Liz doesn't structure their documentation at all. Mary Margaret uses live docs as for a SOP, statement of purpose. Help me out with that acronym, please. But that ease of providing inputs is great. Now, when we think of projects, we need to consider how are we going to store everything we learn and create and do on the project. Yeah, and this is important for a lot of different reasons. One of them is at the end of that project, we're going to archive it off. We're going to have our lessons learned. We're going to have our retrospective. And we want to make sure that we can easily access it later, because the project isn't just about building knowledge. Thank you, Justin. It's about sharing it out. Christine uses folders. I love that, Christine. We'll talk about those as we go, I hope. Interesting. Liz uses SharePoint for sensitive stuff and Dropbox and G Drive for other things. And there's no wrong way to structure our content. But when we think about it, we want to make sure we understand how it's structured and why we chose it to structure it that way. Amy hasn't been successful in structuring content. I'd be curious, Amy, what challenges have you been running into? For me personally, I find I don't make the time to sit down and actually build the structure. I'm too busy, I'll put that in quotes, doing other things. I was talking to my wife the other day, and she was horrified that I had a very bad way of organizing. And you'll see in this screenshot, it's pretty flat. There's drafts just hanging out. This one doesn't even have a name. So we, as project managers or as people working on projects, we need to make sure our information is, well labeled, that it's titled properly, that it's easily accessible to the team. Because knowledge is great, but it's less than useful if we can't access it or share it. So in Confluence, there's two major ways or two big ways we can do this. One is in its own space, and I mentioned these before, and another is in the hierarchy. So every space will have a hierarchy, and in our example, we'll use an entire space for our project, but you also might be just within a different space, and you just get a little bit of the hierarchy. I use this one for smaller projects. If I have a little personal project, I might have, a folder that contains all of my information. But when I have big projects that span 3, 4, 5, 12 months, I use a space. Amy, this is exactly what I do. So please don't be like me if you aren't already there. I'll talk us through ways we can organize it. Christine, which is better, a space per project or a space per team? I'm going to drop in a quick poll and see what folks think. There's no wrong way. However, you'll notice that there might be advantages or disadvantages to each of them. So consider that question as I keep going. Now, within the content hierarchy, we can have children, and this allows us to kind of nest. Option 4, it depends. See, Justin, you already helped me out here. Or you want edge cases. Option C, it depends. Can I edit the poll? I can't. I will make a note to myself to ensure to add a option C other or something like that, or put a comment. Now, within that content hierarchy, it's not just a flat structure. We can nest pages. So you can have content within content, and this is useful for organizing. In my space, I might have a folder called stakeholder information, and then everything about my stakeholders under that, so it's easy to see where things go. The content hierarchy is mainly for a human to visually reference where things are, and you can easily click and drag and move things around. So if you realize you need to change it, you can, or if someone comes in and puts it in the wrong spot, no worries at all. It's super easy to change. All right, we got about 30 people voting, and it looks like most people think per project, although a lot of it depends in the chat. Excuse me. Personally, I will tend to have a space for bigger projects, and I define that as more than 6 months of work, and a part of the team's space for smaller projects. And that happens to work in my organization. It's different everywhere, though. Some places will not allow you to have a space by project. Some places require it, and some places try other things, use different systems. But for me, that's my split. Bigger projects, 6 months, I'll have my own space, smaller ones in here. Now, there's no limit to the depth of the tree in content. I forget if it was Chad or Justin or someone else in a prior learning tried to figure out how many children you can insert, and they stopped at like over 200. General best practice, though, is don't go more than 4 layers deep because your team will have problems digging into it. So as you're considering your structure, also consider what goes under what, and maybe pull things out if you need to. And that's where planning is important. When we think of projects, we think of planning the project. What's the timeline to get the team up and running? What's the timeline for the vendor onboarding? How long will it take to get the materials or get the thing? All of that. We typically don't consider planning out our documentation, though, and then we end up in the scenarios that some folks have mentioned where everything is everywhere and it's not organized. And this makes it hard to figure out. So please take time to plan a structure, and we are going to teleport into Confluence in just a minute and do these things. So again, this is where this live stream is a bit different. I'm trying other things, getting hands-on sooner, but we're going to pop into a Confluence Cloud Premium instance and make a space, and then use a whiteboard to plan our structure. If you have Confluence, like a free version or a place you can safely practice in an organization's version, please jump in and follow along. Again, this hands-on experience will help you. Everything I do in here should be possible in every version of Confluence Cloud. Data Center doesn't have whiteboards to my knowledge, so you'll be able to make the space if you're in Data Center, but you won't be able to build a whiteboard. So here's my reminder to teleport into Confluence. And here we are looking at Confluence Cloud Premium. And again, this will be similar in every version of Cloud. I'm at my homepage, and I'm just going to go up to Create. And I'm going to go find that Space button. Now, you might not see this if you aren't an organization or site admin. Typically, in places I work, I can't make my own space. And that's to make sure we don't get 17 versions of the support team. So if you don't see it, don't worry. If you need a space, you usually have to go to your IT team. And I'm going to just give this a name. Project JQuil 2. I think I already have a Project JQuil, the first one. Liz has a good call out here. Depending on the tier of cloud you're on, the amount of permissions you have can differ. So keep in mind, if you're on free, you won't be able to follow along with the restrictions or access. I'm just going to leave this as collaboration. I'm going to leave the default permissions. This can be a useful setting if you have multiple projects you've worked on. Say you have the same project team and you bring them onto a new project with a new space. You can just copy the permissions from that prior space, so you won't have to go in and set them up. I'll just click Next. I'll turn on all the features. We'll talk about most, if not all of these, and then I'll just create my space. Hayward is saying that their spaces are locked down pretty tightly, so you have a deep folder structure. Again, how we use the system can depend on our organizational environment. And if we think of like professional, the project management trainings, I'm a PMP certified professional. One of the things I have to consider is the organizational environment. What will my company let me do? It won't let me make a space for some reason, so I can't. So here I have my space. My space Project JQuil 2 is ready. You'll notice that it comes with some kind of pre-built stuff, reminders to add all my first things. But before I do anything, I'm going to quickly just take a look up under my space settings, and consider access. Now, depending on the project, it's going to live under space access. You can give specific users access, but hopefully more commonly, you'll have groups. So when I consider my space, I need to consider the project. How sensitive is Project JQuil? Should everyone at the company see it? If not, I need to go in here and edit this, and I have to know that this group, Confluence Users Creators Demo, is everyone in my organization. So I'm going to remove them from the space so they can't see it. Okay. Then I'll go into users and I'll go find my project team and just add these individuals. So I'll just pretend Andrew is my entire project team. I know that name in this box off the top of my head. And then I'll consider, what do I want to let my team do? I want to let them add stuff. I want to let them add blogs and comments and attachments and add restrictions. I don't want them to delete things, but I'll let them archive content. And we'll talk about archiving as we go. But this is important to consider, again, for our project. What should people be allowed to do? Typically, I don't want my project team deleting information. I can do that because I'm the project manager, or maybe a few specific people I give that permission to. But I do want them creating stuff. So I'll save this off. And in some cases, I might also have other people be the space admin just to help me manage things. But again, it depends on my particular project. There's a great side quest going on testing environments. I love it. And Bandit, if you're not in the Discord, I'll drop a link here. That's another great way to follow up. I believe Liz is in there and has been insanely helpful on the technical side of the house. So I'm going to go back. Oh, Ghost. Ghost has a very good call out here. You'll notice there's no edit permission. If we zoom in here, this is different from other systems. Why is editing and adding the same permission? If I give someone the ability to add pages, docs, whiteboards, databases, or smart links, they can add any of those things and edit existing ones they can see. So this can be challenging. Maybe you don't want someone on your team adding new content, just editing. We don't have that ability right now in Confluence to split that permission out. So just an important call out as you're considering permissions. Maybe you don't allow those people to add at all and you find some other way to do it, or you trust them enough. And this is where Confluence is much more about open access and empowering the team and not getting in the way than unlocking everything down as much as you can. So just something we as PMs have to remember. Rodney, no deleting attachments. Again, this would depend on my environment. I could see particular environments where I don't want folks adding or removing attachments. It puts more work on the admins to go do that, or the people that can. All right, I'm going to drop another, where is it? It's down here. Another Q&A. And the question is, what other questions do you have about being a space admin? And for the purpose of this, this will cover anything you just saw about permissions, how to set up the space, how to use the features. I'm doing it this way so I can collect all those questions under this Q&A feature, just so I don't lose them. I want to make sure I can answer them, but also I can keep moving through this content. I will get to them before our break, so please use that question about space admin questions, and I'll leave it up for a little while. So we need to plan our space. We want to be careful about not just going in and building, because we may not build it out in a way that supports our project team. So I'm just going to go and click on Add Your First Whiteboard. And I'm using this link because it's just right there. And you'll see all of these different templates. We'll talk more about whiteboards as we go, but they're a way to visually collaborate and brainstorm. So here I can see there's even like a retrospective one. I'm just going to start with a blank one. And when I'm thinking of my space, I need to start with a home page, which is the first thing someone sees when they come to the space. And then I like to use different shapes to represent different pages. But in my project, I know I'm going to have, maybe I'll break this out by, the project team, and that'll be information about my team. I've got another page that's going to be around the plan. Another team that's going to be about lessons learned. And I would continue doing this to build out, what do I think needs to be in here? Improve IT, could you add that to the poll that I added, or the question, the Q&A, I think is what it's called. I'm trying to see if, there they are. Thank you, Rodney. That's very helpful. Visually, I would just connect these with connectors, so just click on it. But I would take time, and I might even sit down with my project team to say, hey, what kind of information are we going to be tracking? What do we need to know? Maybe I've got one on contracts or vendors. And I'm just thinking of kind of generic project management stuff that I've run into in the past. But this visual guide will be very important when we start actually building the space, because it'll let us know where things should go. And as we go through the project, it's something we can review. It's an artifact, a document, something in our KB that we can come back to and confirm, oh, we're building this out as we intended. Or, whoops, we forgot to put all of our vendor information in the system. Let's go do that now. I would just keep building this out. I won't spend too much time. I think the team's starting to get the idea. I'm doing this in a Confluence whiteboard because the whiteboard exists inside Confluence. And this is important. I should also give it a name. One annoying thing about whiteboards is it's very hard to see the name field. I tend to forget it's there. Whoops. Please name your content. So I'd build this out, and I would have this live in my content tree. And I might even add a folder for project documents, or I might call this team documents, something like that. Zoom in here. And so now I'm starting to build out that structure. And I really should say team documents right here, shouldn't I? There we go. And then I can just click and drag and drop this. And now I'm starting to build that organization. So I'm very quickly going to add in some more folders for this information. And I'm using folders for some of these, for example, lessons learned, because I don't need any content. I just need a way to organize it. I don't need a page called lessons learned because the information in there will be the lessons learned, if that makes sense. Maybe I'll have another one for vendors. But maybe I'll add a page for project team. And right now, I'm just building out a shell, a structure that I'll come into later, and I'll keep expanding and fleshing out as we go. What else do I need? I've got team docs. Oh, I need the plan. And a page for the plan. And then I'm going to archive off these other pages. I'll just click archive. Page not needed. Archiving doesn't delete the content. It's still searchable. So if I need to, I can still go find this wonderful piece of useless information. We'll talk again more about archiving and maintaining our structure as we go, but as you realize content is stale or not needed, please archive it. Get it out of the tree so it doesn't clutter things up. And so now I have a very basic structure that we can now use to build things out. Is it possible to gain access to a restricted page as an admin? One of our questions. Yes. Org admins especially can break into everything, and I believe space admins can also see it. Deep in space settings. Improve IT, I'll have a follow-up right in the Discord on this later today, and I'll probably do a video too, or more extended video on restrictions, because they do cause a lot of frustration, especially to your point when someone happens to leave the organization. Okay, so those were our first two steps. We have our space, we have a basic structure. My next question, which I'll drop in again as a wonderful poll that I'll try to do better at, do you use templates? Or if you have more than just a quick yes or no, what do you think of templates? And while we're going, Rodney's got a quick question, I assume for me. Do I prefer to manage permissions by groups or individuals? When I have groups, I'll use them, Rodney, and when they make sense. For example, if everyone in this training was part of my project team, I would just make a group with them so I can easily add people in and out. But sometimes the teams I'm on have to be more flexible, or I have people coming and going. About 3/4 of us use templates, which is awesome. I like using templates, but they kind of suck. Okay, Emily, if you could expand on that, please, while I talk about them. I have an entire live training on templates, and be on the lookout for more. I'll see if I can dig up the link as we're talking. But templates give you a pre-built structure on a page. Now, in this context, we're talking about page templates. There are templates in databases and whiteboards, but really, when we talk about templates in Confluence, it's all about the page templates. And that's because that's what most people think of when they're considering content. And I've got a link to a long training on templates. I will have more of these coming up. So be on the lookout for more live learnings on templates. We'll talk about them here, though, at a high level. They are typically unique inside a space. So one thing I'm calling out. Emily's asking why my friend Chad looks different in chat. He's a coffee sponsor of the channel. So I do have channel memberships if you want to support what I'm doing. I'll talk more about those at the break. But Emily, that's why he's the favorite student. He is feeding my coffee habit. Now, the important thing about templates, we get about 130 out of the box with Confluence Cloud, but you can make your own. And this is where, when you consider your project or you consider existing content, you want to go through and tailor them to your team so they can be more successful. They're available under a templates menu, but also when you make a page, you'll see them. And so I'll show you both of these in just a moment. I won't dig too deep into modifying templates, but you can customize them. So as you are using templates, and I do this a lot, I review them every month or every 2 months or every 3 months. I just ask myself, hey, are these still useful? Or can I change them in a way to make them better? And I talk to my team about, hey, developer number 3, when you're adding information, is this easier? I should have used the name. Hey, Amy, as a developer, is this template useful for you? How shall I change it? Thank you, Emily. I appreciate the coffee. So you can go in as a space admin and modify these. So check out that link up above and be on the lookout for future live learnings on templates. But we'll talk about a little bit more about them right now. And I need to stay on time. I have 7 minutes to dig into templates. Oh, I like that, Rodney, a Confluencer level. All right, we are back in our space, and I can find templates in 2 spots. In the new UI, it's an item. I hide it. So I click on Customize Sidebar, and I put templates below the line because I don't use this particular link all that much. But I'm going to go back in, and I'm just going to click on Templates. And this will show me every template in this space. Up at the top, I can change spaces. And I'm hammering this one in because people get frustrated. They'll be in the Heentex space and not find the templates that they know exist because they're in some other space. So you can traverse spaces here. There are also global templates. However, you have to be a site or an org admin to make those, which most people can't do. So if you have a super useful template in one project space that you want to move elsewhere, you might have to talk to IT. Ghost, I didn't know it was there either. It used to be in the top nav. So it is there. I don't use this menu. It's just because when I first started using Confluence, I used the create button to make a page. But this is nice because it's a little bit more visual. You can see what the template looks like on the right. Christine, it does not hide it for everyone. It only hides it by individual. And actually, I need to be smart and add another quick Q&A. What questions do you have about templates? So please use that Q&A. That'll record them for me so I can see all the questions and I don't lose any. That'd be very helpful. Lead requests, that's where we need to edit templates. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. But here I can see all the templates, and I can also filter them by, I don't know, which ones are project management. Here we go. These 15 have been tagged as being project management-y. Great. From here, I can click on one, see what it looks like, and just click Use Template. And this makes a brand new page with that template. Now I'm going to get rid of this one and show you another way. I'm going to delete this draft so it doesn't clutter up my beautiful sidebar. And I'm actually going to go to our project that we made, Project jQuild 2. And I'll make this one from Create. And I can use the Create button. Personally, I don't like the Create button. I prefer to work over here on the left. And that's because if I make Create from here, it'll insert it under vendors. I know exactly where it's going to go. From here at the bottom is this funny little bar that appeared magically about 8 months ago. I don't like this because I can't search for other templates. I'm stuck with just the 3 that are like most commonly used. It does speed it up a bit, but I can click on all templates to see this sidebar, which looks very similar. Please star templates that you use. This will star them for you. It's like your own bookmarking. As a space admin, you can also promote them so they're easier for folks to find. But from here, I can just click on, is there anything for vendors actually? Let's just do a quick search, vendor. Look at that, a vendor agreement. I love it. I'll just click on vendor agreement, and this loads the template in. This is super useful for teams that are not as Confluence savvy, or for individuals who don't want to spend a lot of time in Confluence. Again, I want my project team executing project work. I don't necessarily, part of that is documenting, but if I can speed them up, if I can make it take 5 minutes instead of 10, I'm going to do that with a template. And then I'm going to ask the team, hey, is this template very useful? And if they say no, I'm going to go in and edit it and modify it to make sure it meets their needs. And that can be the challenge, is making that time and getting that access. So we can, I'll quickly publish this, and I'll call this coffee vendor because I'm obsessed with coffee. Publish this off. And then I'll go back to my space settings, these 3 dots, space settings. And under this look and feel, I have a templates menu. Again, I won't dig into this too much, but in here I can see a list of every template that I have. This list annoys me because the only way to search it is just to command find the word vendor. But here I can promote it, make it easier for the team to see. So if we use this one a lot, I can turn it off for the space, or I can click on the edit pencil and I can go in and modify it. So again, this may help you out, lead requests. This takes time and you have to work with your team to figure out what you need. But I use the meeting notes template a lot. And so I just spent 5 minutes one day to tailor it to exactly what I wanted. And that helped speed me up with meetings, which made it much easier to get things done. All right, I'll see what questions we have real quick. Rianne, yes, you can make bespoke templates. I'll cancel out of this real quick. Way up at the top, I can create new template, and this will let me make, it looks like a blank page that I can make the template look like whatever I need. So I can modify existing ones, or I can just create a brand new one. It is unique to the space though. So you can talk to an org admin and they can scroll all the way to the bottom of this page. They have this manage global templates ability, which my big fat head is probably in the way of. Let me fly away for a second. Whee! This blue button in the bottom will make a template visible in all spaces, but you have to be a space admin to do that. Can you stop boilerplate templates? I believe so as a org admin, and I won't get too deep into this. Right now I'm my org admin, and I can disable these blueprints across the board. So you might have to work with your information technology team to go do this. But that's a great question, Ghost. I'm probably going to do a follow-up on this one because having 140 templates is a great thing on paper, but when you're actually using it, it can clutter things up. Last parting shot on templates, Ghost. What I do is I just open the page I want a template, copy and paste it into a blank template, and then modify it. It's non-ideal because that, to your point, that's still a page. Emily H., if you do it as the org admin, though, it's global. You only have to do it once. All right, teleporting back into our slides. As I mentioned, this session is 90 minutes, so we are only at the halfway mark. What we're going to do now is take a quick 5-minute break. Please get some more coffee. I need to refill. Use the restroom if you need to. Go Slack your coworkers about how amazing this training is and have them join us. But also consider joining us over in Discord. We've got a great live group. I'll drop an invite link. That QR code on the left will also invite you to Discord. And then on the right, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. I'll play a few ads in here to help support the channel. But if you want to get a little bit more, you can be a member. Chad is my first member, which is amazing. Thank you, my friend. But you get early access to videos. You look special in chat. You get some extra emojis, that kind of thing. So I'm going to put a 5-minute timer up. Please, you don't have to disappear though. Please feel free to stick around in the chat and keep chatting with each other, keep learning. And I will be back in about 5 minutes. please insert the hold music of your choice. I didn't have time to find something good for us. But again, please consider joining us in Discord, become a member of the channel, and I'll see you all very, very soon. All right, folks, got about a minute left in our break. I guess a project management-y question. Which type of project management is best? Thank you, Chad. I'm definitely going to recreate your experiment at some point. I think that'll be a lot of fun and terrifying to see. I also almost wonder if an auto clicker overnight would crash something. Not that I'm suggesting anyone try to crash systems, but Rian, you are now my favorite person. I think I registered jquill.com. It just points to my blog. But I was a huge fan when I discovered that. Playing with fire, Hayward. Liz, the one that fits the situation. Ooh, pure chaos. I like pure chaos. About 20 votes. Most people think agile. Okay, that is fair. All right, folks, we are back from our break. Thank you so much for sticking around. I know I need to get up and move after about an hour, so we are going to get right back into our agenda. We are now in the second half, so we will continue to bring up the concepts and ideas that we've spoken about in the past. But we're now going to move on to like content types, talking about how do we collaborate in Confluence, and then what kind of other features, I just loosely grouping advanced features, help support project managers. This will be an interactive experience, so I'm tinkering around with some fun things here. Thank you all for answering what is the best type of project management. According to this group, Agile is the best type of project management. So please tell your coworkers, we have all decided Agile is the king, followed by Other, and then Waterfall, and then Kanban bringing up the rear with just 9%. How many content types in Confluence can you name? I briefly mentioned them about 45 minutes ago, so I'm curious how many you can all quickly type out into chat and just let me know how many content types you can name. Now, in Confluence, there are specific things called content types. Stereotypically, we think of pages, and that is the basic fundamental building block. It supports texts, images, etc. And that's a lot of what I use as a project manager. My meeting notes are all some kind of page. My policies are all some kind of page. A lot of things are all some kind of page. Recently, they have also added a live doc, and the biggest difference is live docs are instantly published. And so that means you don't end up with drafts. I haven't started using live docs a lot. The intention behind those is just to make sure it's instantly available. So think a retrospective doc, something you want people just to see. You could do in there. But again, they both support a lot of great information, including things called macros that I'll talk about as we go. Now, there are other content types. Emily H. called out whiteboards and databases. We've used a whiteboard before, and we're going to use another one together when we talk about collaboration. But we also have databases, which let us structure information. I use databases as a lightweight project tracking tool. And if I have time today, I'll show you what that looks like. But they allow you to structure information in Confluence. You can even reference other databases. So think of like a join in an SQL, a SQL statement. So you can build very complex structures. I built out a CRM, I think it was last week, in advanced use cases. I'll grab a link for that. But these allow us to build out some more interesting stuff than we could otherwise. I'll share a playlist to more information on databases because we can't really dig into them too much right now. But I'm exploring a lot more ways to use it and talking to the PM, the product manager over on the Atlassian side on what are other ways we can use it. Because I think that databases could be very helpful to project teams. We just haven't fully explored what they are yet. So the link I just dropped will go to a playlist I have on databases if you want to dig in more. Now, there are also smart links. And Emily, you were so close, you almost got all of them. You missed one there. Smart links let us not structure data. You can see I just copied the slide here. Smart links let us pull in other pages. Now, I use this a lot as a PM because I'll typically have a reporting tool that I have to connect somehow into Confluence. I usually would put that on a page as a hyperlink, but a smart link can be inserted into the content hierarchy. So as my team is looking at my vendor list, they can click a button and go to my vendor management system. And it's right in Confluence. They don't have to open a page. They don't have to search for it. It's just there. But I can anything I can hyperlink, I can go in and do that with. So we'll see that when we add a couple smart links in a moment. And last, we have blogs. Blogs are kind of the forgotten content type. They're mainly used for point-in-time information. I use them for product updates or project updates. Every week, I post a blog, and then over time, I can see every update. Now, those updates are only really useful for a week or two after they're posted. So they're not like perennial content evergreen content I always need, like a policy or vendor information. It's something that's only useful for a week, and then I move on to the next one. Now, content does have restrictions. I've mentioned this term before, but basically this is access or permissions to specific pieces of content. So you'll want to consider when you add content as a project manager, are there things you don't want some people to edit? And this is where the edit permission shows up. It's not at the space level, it's at the content level. So it's more granular, which is good and bad. I can't automatically prevent April from editing databases, but I can add a restriction to databases I don't want them to edit. So it takes a little bit more thought and planning, and they can also be super frustrating, especially if you don't know about them. So make sure you tell your team that restrictions exist, because you'll end up with scenarios where Ghost can see a page, but Liz can't. And then they'll come to you complaining that Confluence is broken and it's a terrible system and on and on and on. And you'll say, hang on, I can fix it in 2 clicks. It was just restricted. Or maybe they shouldn't have seen it. So keep in mind restrictions exist. And there are 2 flavors of restriction. One is a view restriction. You can prevent someone from viewing a page. This restriction inherits. So if I put a view restriction on design, where no one can view it except for me and Chad, only Chad and I can see the children, the things under it. So Confluence just assumes everything under that restriction should also be restricted and for view. So if you can't see the parent, you can't see the children. Now, edit restrictions are your next level. These don't inherit down, and my big fat head's in the way. Let me go up here. There we go, top right. These don't inherit down. So if I am unable to edit the design page, it's possible I can edit how to log in. And if I can edit design, that doesn't mean I can edit how to log in. So this is something else that's super challenging. Rodney is calling out, as an admin, there might be content that you can't see because it's restricted. There are settings as an admin to go in and see the restrictions and modify them. So if someone leaves or leaves the team or accidentally restricts something and can't unrestrict it, you can go in and kind of break them out. Now, here's an open question, and I'm going to leave this one in the just in the chat. How do you help collaboration? How do you encourage collaboration on your projects? And here you can take collaboration to, any definition of that word that makes sense. How do you get people working together better? How do you get people building documentation at the same time? How do you encourage people to not just sit their heads down doing work, but also to engage with the team and work with each other to help build something more than they could just build on their own? Now, it's kind of a loaded question in Confluence because there are specific things in Confluence that allow you to collaborate. But what things do you use? Hayward, when we jump hands-on, I'll dig more into restrictions. But could you expand on this by parent-level access management, just so I understand what you mean? Ghost just yells at people. Okay. I can't recommend that. Also, what is a CAF? A coffee aficionado? CAF? Jessica uses the Scrum ceremonies. Whoops, went too far. So in Confluence, there are a number of technical ways, a number of features that we can use to encourage collaboration. And we'll explore some what ways what this looks like when we get hands-on again. But the most obvious is comments. And Chad, it showed up right as I said it. But you can comment on a page. You can comment on a particular piece of text on a page. You can comment inside a whiteboard. You can comment on a specific cell of a database. And in that comment, you can also @mention people. So I drive my team nuts because I'll read documentation and I'll @mention the person who wrote it. Hey, Rodney, is this still accurate? Or hey, Chad, I've got a follow-up question. The challenge I see with comments is people ignore them or they don't realize they're there. So I have to do a lot of work with my teams to help them understand, like, no, there will be comments. And as the person who created this content or this team member, you are responsible for reading and resolving them. So that's something to consider as you use the system, ensuring your team understands how it works and what's expected. But comments are a great way to do that and work asynchronously. Hey, Kyther, good to see you, my friend. Glad you could make it. So please comment, but please also tell your team that comments exist. Mary Margaret is familiar with ignoring comments. Now, comments will trigger a notification. Many other things will also trigger a notification, though. Confluence will send out updates. So if you're watching a page, which I haven't really spoken about, you'll get an email. If you are @mentioned, you'll get an email. So email is a stereotypical way of doing this, and each individual can control their notification settings, but you can also do things like integrate with Slack. And so there are other ways to send out notifications. We'll talk a little bit about automations later, but you can have an automation send someone a notification when certain events happen. All right, Hayward, sorry. When we get in, I'll dig into restrictions and hopefully answer your question. Thank you, Carther. This is what I'm trying to get to break my own habit of ignoring them all, and I'm really bad with notifications. I need to go in and tweak them because I tend to get buried in notifications. For example, I think I have 400 notifications from Jira that I ignore. So please go in and modify the settings, but double check on them. So the next thing we can do, though, to collaborate, and this sounds simple, is just sharing content. Now, sharing content respects whatever underlying permissions that person has. So if I copy a hyperlink and I send it to Kythra, and she doesn't have view access to the page, she can't see it. Same thing if I push the share button, which is something I almost never use. Awesome. I might drop another quick question for folks just to start catching these. I'm going to hit start Q&A. I'm just going to have a general question. What questions do you want me to answer in the live demo? And if you've got questions, drop them in the chat, but it also helps me if they're in there. And I'm still struggling to find the best way because I want everyone to see all the questions, and I don't know if you can all see all the Q&A. So let me know. There's a questions list I have. Let me know if you can see that, but I want to make sure folks can see questions. Sharing is another way to do it. This will send them a notification that you can add a message to. So there's a share button. I personally don't use it just because I just copy the hyperlink. Now, the last one that I think Rodney pointed out, there is a way to collaboratively edit. Now, in this screenshot, and my big fat head's covering it up, let me teleport over here. You'll see this R. This means someone whose username begins with an R, I'll give you a hint, it was me, is also on this same page, editing right here. So pages off the top of my head support up to 10 concurrent editors, but other content types like whiteboards also support concurrent editing. And so this is a great way to plan or brainstorm. It's a great way to get people involved who aren't all in the same room, or even if you are in the same room. It's a way you can have people working together. Now, live docs take this a step further, where it's intended for people to all be editing it at the same time. I'm actually going to teleport in. I forgot a slide to pop into Confluence right here. All right, so we're quickly going to demonstrate creating content. I've got a question: how do we create databases? Going back to my space, vendors is actually a great example. I'm going to click the plus button, and here I see databases listed. If you don't see this, you might be on Data Center. If you're on Data Center, I don't believe you get databases yet. But also this feature can be turned off in your space. So you'll have to talk to a space admin to flip it on. But I can just click plus, and that will make my new database. So I'll talk about these a bit. This allows us to structure information, and I'll very quickly build out one to track vendors. But maybe I call this field vendor name. I've got, a type of vendor. And this is some kind of drop down where I've got material, I've got professional services, And then I've got like main point of contact. So it looks like a table, but it behaves more like a database, like lowercase d, where I can start adding vendor names. We've got a vendor name, HeemTech. They are a professional services organization, and my point of contact is Andrew. He's the main person who talks to this group. I've got another vendor that's Google, and they provide hats with little funny spinny things on them, and Rob is my point of contact. So this is a very quick way to build these up. Or to build out a database. Again, super high level. Please take a look at the playlist I've got detailing this more because there's a ton more to these. And be on the lookout for more information from me about them. I'll drop the link in here right quick. Database playlist. Chad, if you need help, let me know. I'll be happy to write you a letter of recommendation, I guess. So this is a quick way to make a database. Like whiteboards, the name is hard to see. So make sure you name them. But now in my project management example, I've got a vendor database my team can come in and take a look at. I also use these for lightweight project tracking. So I'll have like tasks listed. I've used these to build a CRM, but mainly I use these anywhere I would normally use like a Google Sheet, if that makes sense. Now I've mentioned collaborating. I can add comments directly on this cell. So I might have a comment saying, you know, this vendor is great, use them more. Hopefully it's obvious to everyone that HeemTech is me. That's my business. Just need to call that out. So you can have your team come in and comment on specific cells in the database. So if they have updates or things they want to ask about, it's all right there. You can import databases. So there's an option to import via CSV, as Chad is pointing out. So you can download and upload external content. So that's some of our collaboration. Another way to collaborate, though, if I make a whiteboard, I'll just call this like project brainstorming. And maybe we have, I'll use the brain writing template. I've never used, wow, cool. The whiteboard templates have a lot of great information, but I'm going to click share. And I have some options. I can share it internally. But what I'm going to do now is just make a public link. And I'm demonstrating this because we can have public links that we can share outside of our organization in brainstorming. So if you all follow that link in the chat, this will take you to this whiteboard. Now, if you go in here, I'm assuming you will be respectful. No profanity, anything like that. But you can use that link, and you don't have to have a license access to this Confluence instance beyond just the link. So this is a way you can extend your team. I'm managing a project, and I need external customers to join in and provide their feedback, or I need vendors to come in and let me know what they think, or I need team members who don't have a Confluence license for some reason. I can give external access. Now, this does require some setup. My space, I've got an anonymous crab floating around. They make you an animal if you don't have a license. Like Chad is pointing out, though, your organization may prevent anonymous access. So if you don't see that option, your company has just decided we're not going to allow that. And in many cases, that is locked down because you can accidentally share things that maybe you shouldn't. For example, if this had sensitive information, the anonymous giraffe and anonymous crab would get access to that. So this is just something to consider. This type of access and this collaborative editing is very powerful. You can do it within your team if they have access, and we would see people's names. Or you'll see these anonymous folks. I've got a wolf, a crab, an actual person, Candace, a rose, a flower floating around. But again, it's a way of getting other folks in here to help build things out and collaborate. This also works with pages. You can have people come in and collaboratively edit. It works with live docs. I don't believe it works with databases, although I honestly haven't tried it. That's something I'll have to ask the team. So this is one way to collaborate and one way to get our team working together. As a project manager, this is a great feature for things like retrospectives. Bill, I really like that comment. If you could request to publish something publicly and then have an approval step, that would be a very cool thing to see. All right, I've got some other questions. I'll leave that particular page anonymously accessible if you want to poke around in this whiteboard. All right, we talked a little bit about collaboration. I'm going to go over to our coffee vendor document real quick. Commenting on a page, way at the bottom, you can comment on the overall page. This isn't bad. Rodney mentioned in chat quite a bit, though. Inline commenting is better. You can find the exact text you want to comment on and click comment, and that puts the comment exactly where you need it. I use this a lot with stakeholders. So I'll have some kind of update, and I'll say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Person stakeholder, please put your comments on anything you need clarification on. And that way they don't have to come find me. They don't have to be confused about what I mean by something. I can see exactly what they're asking about, and I can see their comment right in here. And I just ask them to tag me on it. Of course, I have to go review this, but once I review it, I can reply to the comment. Here, I'll zoom in a bit. I can add reactions, and I can also resolve it. So after I answer that question, I can click resolve, and then the comment is kind of archived off. You'll notice it disappeared, but it's still accessible under more actions and comments. So these things are still accessible. Wrong button. And this is a way that I can better manage, especially stakeholders, is the group I tend to use it at quite a bit, to get into it. All right, other questions. Analytics on a page. Great question, Bill. I guess part of collaborating is understanding how content is being used. Every page, actually, maybe I'll go use that whiteboard and see what's going on here. Wow, more people. Love it. Someone found the stamps. All right, cool. On the page level, I do get analytics, which I think they've moved. Details, stats. There we go. So recently, the nice people at Confluence broke up our bar. And in the bottom right, I've got this little guy. If I click on the eye, I'll get some high-level information about it. Now, this is, again, a test instance. There's not much in here. But I can click on See More Information. And depending on the tier of Confluence Cloud I have, I get a lot more. So I can see total views. I can see unique views. I can see a lot of great information on how is this page being used. As a project manager, this can be incredibly useful. It helps me understand, is my document stale? Do I have to get rid of it, archive it off, that kind of thing. All right. And 90 minutes, I told myself would be long enough, and it really isn't. Please feel free to keep playing on that whiteboard. I'll shut it down at the end of this training. Excuse me. Back into our Confluence. Back into our slides. I'm curious if folks use how folks use Confluence for task tracking. Now, task tracking for me as a project manager is something that I'm horrible at. I tend to find myself writing down in my notebook tasks. I tend to find myself putting them in Slack. I find myself putting them all over the place. And I need to be better disciplined at putting them in one spot. And Confluence has helped me start to do that. It's by no means perfect. But Confluence does allow us to track tasks. Now, this is different than using Jira. And so the way I use it, and because I mainly use it for things like meeting notes, I use the task feature. And this makes them assignable and due dateable. So think of it like a lightweight Jira ticket, or something above writing it down on a scratch paper. But if you mention someone in a task, they'll get notified, and it can show up in other features. So, stale information, Jessica. Trey uses Jira Epics. The tasks, again, are lightweight. They live only in Confluence. You can make a Jira ticket from them, but they do show up in the edit bar as this little checkbox. I use this a lot in meetings. I'm in a meeting with my project team, and I hear Alistair saying that they're going to do XYZ. I write it down and put it in there. Yes, we do, Kythra. I've been meaning to follow up with you on that, my friend. You can also insert them as a / as a macro for action item. Or if you're like me and you're super lazy, open bracket, close bracket, space, we'll do that for you. Excuse me. So this has helped me because it's all in one spot, and I can see my open tasks very easily. With a macro, they both show up under my homepage. So here I see every task that I am tagged on. And we'll pop into this when we get hands-on again, very soon. But you can also see all the ones you've created. So if you've made tasks for other people, or if you've put them in there and forgot to put your name on them, you can still quickly find them. I'll back up real quick, Mary. It's in the edit toolbar on a page. And it's this little square-looking thing with a check mark in it. When we get live, I'll demonstrate exactly how to do this too. One thing to note about these checkboxes, when you check them, it'll show as completed. Anyone who can edit the page can edit the checkbox. And if someone's watching the page, every time it gets checked, they'll get a notification, or at least they used to. So just be aware other team members might come in and check off your task accidentally. There is also a macro you can insert on pages, and I do this for my team members. I go to Justin and say, hey, Justin, I'm going to give you a page in Confluence. On that page is going to be a task report of tasks that show up. You are responsible for checking on these. You're responsible for making them Jira tickets, whatever. But you can filter it by label. So maybe I have a development team, and when I'm in a meeting with my developers, I put the developer label on it. And then I can filter by assigned to. So I might say my development team, here are all your tasks. And separately, I could say, hey, Justin, here are all your tasks. Alex has got a great question. How do I deal with dependencies? Ownership is just with that @mention, Alistair. Again, this is very lightweight, and it doesn't have like history tracking. Typically, I will use a task to start building out what I want to do. And then I will, if I need to, flip it into Jira, flip it into Trello, something else. Liz is saying, why would I do that here? I do it here because it's in the system. Typically, I find myself making tasks in the middle of a meeting. I'm talking to everyone. I'm running a live stream. I just need to slam it down into Confluence so it's recorded and not forgotten. Then I go through later when I review my notes and write my status updates or whatever, and I pull out the tasks that I put in and I make them a Trello card. I make them a Jira work item, that kind of thing. I'm probably going to run out of time. I knew this was going to happen. We're going to talk about automations a bit. But curious, how much automation do you use as a project manager, or what things do you look to automate? Bill, tasks for me are a daily feature that I use. I will share another video I've done on tasks just to give folks a deeper dive into them. Again, I don't have time to go fully into everything, and this is where I just have ideas now for more live training, more things I can give folks to help you all stay on top of it. So we're briefly going to talk about automations, because as a project manager, there is a ton of work that I do that the system can do for me. And that is really important, that I don't do the work if I don't need to. It needs to get done, but I should just make Confluence take these actions. And also, another shout out to our Discord. Join us in there so you can have just real-time chat with folks. It's intended to be a resource for everyone, not just for studying, not just for project managers, but how to use these systems. Trey, I'll definitely do one. Now, Improve IT is pointing out automations are a feature available in every cloud version. However, you only get 100 executions of any automation in a month on standard. So you'll need to consider your tier and work with your team to only put in automations that you need, but they have the system take some action for us. They need a trigger when they start. They need some kind of action. What do they do? But they could also have a condition. So I want you to, when a page is made, if Rob made it, add a label project manager. That's a very simple, bare bones, basic one. But you can start thinking, what are the things I have to do as a project manager that I don't like doing? Maybe every Monday there's a big meeting with the team. I don't want to have to go make a page every Monday. I can just automate it. And I do this quite a bit with the meetings I know that are scheduled out. Every Monday, the system just generates pages for me that I go in either as a checklist of something I do every week, so I have a record of having done it, or I go through and have the notes created. April's got a great point here. Over time, there will be drift. People will leave the organization. Things will change. So I lightly document out the automations I have, or I tell people about them, just so they know that these actions are automated and I built it. So something that I want to call out, excuse me, is just to be careful with them. And to April's point, making sure we're aware that there's an automation. Now, if you have Atlassian Intelligence, you can also automate things like like summaries. So there are a lot of things you can do. Another example, create new work items in Jira. So a page is published. If Alistair created the page and there's a label called requirement, make a requirements work item for me to go work on. So we can also automate between systems. We can do that as well. So it's not just within Confluence, it's across systems. I mentioned regular meeting notes, or regular sprints, I meant to say. I forgot to update the header. But if a page is published and it contains the word sprint plan, go make a sprint in Jira for me. So with automations, the biggest hurdle most folks have is they don't know what they can do. A better way to think about it is go talk to your team and figure out what they're doing manually and then help them do that auto-magically. Take time to identify a few use cases. Rodney, I'm kind of afraid to show it. All right, I'm going to have to go a bit quickly through these last slides, but there are multiple integrations between Jira and Confluence. I need to call out many teams that use one use the other. And there's different ways we can share information. I mentioned automations, but you can also link pages to work items and vice versa. You can display work items in Confluence. You can display them on Confluence whiteboards. But you can also create work items directly from Confluence. You can also surface them. So I can pull in a list, excuse me, of Jira work items and show them to folks. This is a great way to get stakeholders to look at things because sometimes they don't want to use Jira. They want to go into Confluence or are comfortable with that more. But on the Jira side, I can link existing Confluence content or make new Confluence content directly from the work item. So I make sure that my team knows about the ability to do that. Team, I will show the whiteboard right at the end of the stream. I'm kind of scared now. You can also use it to support customers if you use Jira Service Management. So just keep in mind the stuff we build in Confluence isn't just within Confluence. As a project manager, I want to think about how do I use it in other places and how do I make it easier for my team to use. All right, I will come right back to that slide. I do want to touch on a few last things in here. My meeting notes, if I click on the Confluence logo in the top, wait, did they move it again? Why? Well, maybe I can't show you my task items because it's not here anymore. Instead, I will go back to my space, excuse me, and I'm just going to add under Team Docs a page, and I'm going to call it tasks or to-do items, maybe team tasks. And all I'm going to do is hit the /, and this will let me add a macro, and I'll type in, what is it called? My brain, to do, list. It all fell out of my head. I will just quickly back up because I know the name of the slide was here. Task report. How silly of me. There we go. Now I'll have to give it a space to pull from, and I'm going to use a different space as an example. But here I can see a list of all of the to-do items that show up. Did we lose the children? Oh no, I'm kind of scared to see what happens. I can further filter this. I might say only show me the things assigned to Robert Heen. And I use this to give each of my team members their own list or my groups. So in my team, if I have a certain group like developers, I don't know if anything will show up. Nope. I would then sort by label, and I'd have a label just for developers, a label just for business analysts, a label just for finance, where I could then filter down these to-do items. Now, if I go and publish this, checking these off will complete them, but I can also select them, and I can create a Jira work item right from here. So this is something I do in the meeting. I will be furiously adding tasks and meeting notes. And then when I review my notes to scrub them, which I hope everyone does as a project manager, yes, I'll then go create work items as I need to. I don't know. And that seems like a bug right there. I don't care about Atlassian Intelligence. Oh, it's trying to use AI to build the work item. This should allow me just to make a work item. Yeah, I'll create manually, sure. That I can put it in. All right, folks. I'm at 4 minutes. That time went way too fast, and that was half as long again. A selfish request. I need your help. I am constantly looking at ways to improve what I do and make this better for all of you. One of the pieces of feedback was I can't fit everything into the session, so that's why these are now a bit longer, or this one was. Another one was ensuring we have time for questions at the end. That's why I was trying with the polls and things. But if you have other ideas on how I can make this better, I'd love your feedback. This link will take you to a Google form. It's 4 questions. If you have a moment, I would really appreciate you jumping in there to help out. And I also have Udemy courses. So I am at a point in my career where I'm transitioning more towards freelance work, more towards contract things, less of the traditional 9 to 5. And one way you can help ensure I can keep doing this kind of stuff is to consider purchasing my courses. And there's a link here. This is a discount code you can use for yourself to a 4-hour Confluence course. And it covers most of what we spoke about and then a ton more. This is intended to be, you don't know anything about Confluence. Let me give you everything I think you should know to be successful. I'll drop that right there for y'all. And also, again, consider becoming a member. And, well, hang on. Let me get rid of that. There we go. There's no next session. This is the only one. There are a lot of next steps, though, you should take. This is not everything you should know about being a project manager, so please review the recording if you missed something. Sorry, Udemy. It's like U Academy smashed together. So a lot of people say like Udemy. Udemy. So please check out that link for Udemy course. I have a lot of other online learning courses, including ones on project management. So happy to share more discount codes if folks need those. Becoming a channel member is another great way to support what I do and feed my crippling coffee addiction. And if we ever meet, I'll buy you a coffee. But please review the recording, but get hands-on. The best way to remember these skills and to expand them is to practice. So please go in and use Confluence if you have it. If you don't have it, you can actually get a free live version, and I'll send a link to that. It doesn't have every feature of what we saw. It doesn't have, for example, the Atlassian Intelligence. It doesn't have, for example, permissions. But you can do almost everything we've done in the free instance. And so I'll drop a link to how to do that. All you need is an email. Is right here. So get hands-on. Best place to do that is with your organization because there'll be more stuff in there. You'll have more information available because it'll be populated with real stuff. But also feel free to email me, robert@heen.tech. I'll be happy to answer your questions. And of course, join us in that Discord chat. It's a great group, again, about 150 folks. Many of the people in the chat that you saw pretty active today are in there, plus a whole bunch more. Just sharing information on how they operate, how to do better, how to use Confluence and Jira, and all that good stuff. So that is all I've got. That was 90 minutes. That flew by for me. I really want to say thank you for sticking around. I felt like that went pretty well, but I'll drop one more quick poll just to get a quick sense check. This is a bit of a loaded question, as you'll see. It's not whiteboard fear, Rodney. I'm going to go look at the whiteboard. I'm mildly terrified to see what people have come up with. Okay, here we go, folks. Here is the whiteboard that the collective project team has put together. Oh, wow. From Tushar, this is similar to Miro. Yes. No worries, Amy. We'll keep working on it. You're very welcome, Trey. I appreciate you coming. April, you're most welcome. Thank you, Bill. Glad you're here. Glad you appreciated it. Of course, please like and subscribe. If you hit that like button, it helps other people find this. Let me zoom out a little. Anything more? No. Okay. Whew, we're just limited to this. So please like and subscribe if you have a minute. That helps me out. Used Lucidchart for 8 to 10 years. I used Lucidchart up until my company got rid of it, and that's when I started using whiteboards. The nice thing is they exist in Confluence, so if you have a license you can get in. You don't have to get extra licenses. Who is person number 2, the conspiracy? I may have to publish this somewhere, folks. This is beautiful. Shall we play a game? If you have a cat, tell them I love them. My cats already know. Just cats know. All right, folks. I will leave this up for a bit, and I'll leave the chat open for a few minutes. Awesome. So far, about 86% of people think the session was great, amazing, or wow. I love that. Again, please continue learning. And if you have the means and ability, please consider supporting the channel just so I can keep doing this kind of stuff. I'm looking forward to having more longer sessions so we can dig into some of this craziness. And please let me know your ideas in that feedback form, how I can be better or what other topics you want to learn. I'll leave the chat open for a bit, but thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate it, and I really hope to see you all again here soon.